Welcome back, everybody, to our Midwestern Horned Owls Dynasty here on College Football 25. Today, we're going to be getting through the entire offseason, but before we get into that, we have to talk about what I started to talk about at the end of our last episode. That is that when EA dropped the latest patch for this game, it completely broke the dynasty that we had going. I was unable to fix it, so I had to redo the entire first year of this dynasty. I made sure that we won over and lost to the exact same teams and went 5-7 again, but everybody else's record might be a little bit different. The stats that we put up in the redo are going to be different, but we'll pretend like these stats that we put up in the first year that we played are the stats that we have moving forward in this dynasty. And also the recruiting class is going to be completely different. There's no getting around that. Here is a look at who made the conference championship games. We'll see who ends up winning those games here in a little bit. Moving on to the coaching staff. Reggie Hambrick, he's going nowhere. He's the head coach of the Horned Owls here for the foreseeable future. The offensive coordinator, Avery Waller, he's going to be brought back. We averaged 30.2 points per game, third best in the Conference of USA, and 35th in the nation. I like the Central Florida pipeline because there are plenty of good players in the state of Florida, so he's going to be brought back. Our defensive coordinator, on the other hand, Kellen Dustin, I don't think we're going to be bringing him back. I know he was dealt a bad hand with the players that we had on the roster on the defensive side of the ball especially, but we had the worst defense in not just Conference USA, but the entire nation. His pipeline being New Mexico doesn't really help us out, so we're just going to be firing him and moving on from him, and that means we are going to have to hire a brand new defensive coordinator. We are going to be sticking with a 4-2-5 defense regardless of what defensive coordinator we bring in and what their scheme says, but we will begin the search for a new one. Jalen Milroe has won the Heisman Trophy. No surprise there, he had a good season and he did have a pretty big game against us. The conference championship games have all been played out. To nobody's surprise, Liberty are the champions of the Conference of USA as they defeat Sam Houston 42-21. Here is a look at who has made the college football playoff. This is the first year of them doing the 12-team college football playoff. We'll see who comes on at top here very soon. Alex Whitworth is the new defensive coordinator that we are going after. He has interest from Coastal Carolina. The thing is, he pretty much ended up choosing us right away. So we do have a brand new defensive coordinator. His defensive scheme is a 3-4, but we're going to be sticking with a 4-2-5. His pipeline is South Florida, which pairs pretty well with the Central Florida pipeline we have already from Avery Waller, our offensive coordinator. His abilities are pretty good. He has most of his points put into tactician. He does have a few points put into recruiter. I would like to see him put some more points into that to help us out there. He also has a few points in a motivator to help give us a boost when it comes to off-season training for linebackers and defensive linemen. But the thing he has the most of his points put into is tactician, where he's going to be helping us out ratings-wise for not just the defense, but the offense as well, especially the offensive line. He has that maxed out. That's really good. Notre Dame has won the college football championship as they defeated Utah 24-21. For Notre Dame, it is their 12th ever national championship. With that out of the way, we can now officially get into the offseason. We'll start here with players leaving. Zion Chambers, he wants to transfer away. He was our highest rated cornerback this last season, but he didn't really play very well, so I'm not too sad to be seeing him leaving. Jerome Moon and Hayden Warner, our strong safety and free safety, were both starters from last season and were our highest rated at those positions. They both want to leave, and that does sting a little bit because now we're going to have to replace quite a few members of our secondary. And to top things off, Javon Turner, he also is going to be transferring away. So we will have to replace both of our starting interior defensive linemen because Joe Moss is going to be graduating. Speaking of players graduating, we have 49 seniors on the roster. Now, not all of them are graduating for whatever reason. They do have some players that we redshirted that were seniors on this list that are going to be back next season, but we are going to be losing 42 seniors in total. So a lot of seniors graduating, 4 players transferring away. We got to replace 46 players in one offseason, which is impossible because we can only bring in 35. with scholarships. This is a completely different recruiting class than the one that you guys have been seeing me make progress on. So since this is the first time that you guys are going to be seeing any of these recruits that we're going to be bringing in, we have to go over every single one of them. That's going to take some time. So we will just jump straight to National Signing Day and go position group by position group to cover every single commit that we got in this recruiting class. Starting with Jordan Jones, he is one of 2 quarterbacks that we brought in. He's got impact as his development trait, which is solid. He is a top 500 player in this recruiting class, ranking-wise at least, but maybe not overall-wise, because the throw power being just an 86 is not very good, but I like the accuracy ratings, and he's a bit mobile and he's got good size. If you compare him to Forrest Fry, the other quarterback that we brought in, he's not quite as good, despite being ranked 1,000 spots higher nationally. Now, Forrest Fry also has impact as his development trait. He's more mobile than Jones. The accuracy ratings are comparable, but he's got a way stronger arm, and that may end up being the difference between starting and being redshirted as a true freshman. On the running back, we also brought in 2 of these guys. Darrell Leff is the more interesting one in my opinion because he's got elite as his development trait, which is the best that he could get here in College Football 25. Now, I know I said that he's got elite as his development trait, and that's great and all, but we're probably going to be redshirting him. I just don't see him playing a ton as a true freshman when you have Jordan Bryant as your main guy, and he's not a power back like Avery Sizer is, who is going to be playing as a true freshman because he will be the only power back we will have on the roster. Avery Sizer's got star as his development trait, which is the second best, so we brought in 2 really good running backs and 2 solid quarterbacks. What about the other positions? Let's go to fullback. Well, Duke Sterling, he only has normal as his development trait, which is fine. And I don't really expect Duke Sterling to play as a freshman. He's actually going to be redshirted because we still have Chris Brooks on the roster, who is a senior and just flat out better than Duke Sterling. So Sterling is going to be redshirted, but maybe he ends up being our starting fullback next year. At wide receiver, we got 3 of these guys to commit, and 2 of them are expected to play as true freshmen. George Barr is one of the 2 that I expect to play early. He's got impact as his development trait. He is 6'3", 187 out of Wisconsin. Now the speed is not very good. It's only 85. But I picture him more as a possession wide receiver that you can throw the ball up to or throw the ball into traffic, and he may end up coming out with the ball more often than not. At least that is the hope with him. Nick Shields, he is the other receiver I expect to play early out of the 3 that we brought in. He has the best speed of any wide receiver that we are going to have on the roster, so we have to pretty much play him. He is 6'1", so he's not small, and he has impact as his development trait. Roberto Suarez, he's going to be redshirted, only normal as his development trait. He's undersized at 5'8", 180, and even though he is a route runner, his route running is not the greatest, but I do like his athleticism, and maybe down the line he could be a solid player. But I guess it depends on what his attribute caps end up looking like. We brought in 2 tight ends, and one of these 2 is going to be playing, and that would be Joey Hammer, who's got impact as his development trait. He may not be the biggest tight end at 6'1", 250, and he's not really a good blocker, but he's got good hands and good athleticism. We could use a player like that at tight end. We didn't really have anybody like that last year at tight end, so expect to see quite a bit of Joey Hammer as a true freshman. The other tight end that we brought in is George McLeod, a pure blocking tight end, and a pretty good one at that. But the thing is, we have 2 senior tight ends that have to play, and then you throw in Joey Hammer, that would make George McLeod the 4th-string tight end. So we are going to be redshirting him instead of just having him waste his freshman year as a depth piece. The offensive line was one of our main focuses in this first year of recruiting, and I think we did pretty well at bringing in some players that can help us right away, but mostly down the line. Afa Vaitai is an impact tackle out of Missouri at 6'6", 287 with good ratings, but the strength is not great. So he is going to be redshirted, and maybe down the line, he will be a starter for us and a pretty good player. That's the hope with him. But Jimmy Fisher, he will have a chance to start right away. He's got star development, which is amazing. 6'7", 305, so good size and good athleticism for his size. The strength is good at 86. but the awareness is only a 59. So if something is going to hold him back, it would be that. And that would be the really only thing that I could see making him lose that starting spot. At guard, we got 2 of the 3 I was going after to commit. But the thing is, we remember have 2 senior guards that were starters for us last year as juniors in Shad Green and James Hoover. So both of the guards that we brought in will be redshirted. Garrett, he has a chance down the line to be really good. Impact development trait, and he's a pretty big guard with good ratings. Rashad Gilreath, I picture him as a utility offensive lineman. Maybe never a starter for us, but a really just versatile piece that you could plug in anywhere because that team player mental ability is platinum, meaning that he will not really have any drop off wherever you put him. He's just going to be the same player, which is really good and nice to have on the team. Addison Bynum, who we missed out on, has impact as his development trait. Pretty good pass blocker, but the run blocking needs some work. I'm sure he's going to be good for Notre Dame eventually. We unfortunately only got 1 center to commit, and James Maldonado, he only has normal development. He's got okay pass blocking. He's a better run blocker, but I do like the strength, and he also has a couple of abilities in second level and screen enforcer. So I think he could be pretty good for us. Very likely that he ends up being redshirted, though, for his first year on the team. While the focus on offense was the offensive line, the defensive side of things was focused on the defensive line. I really do want to build up the trenches and make that the strength of the team. I think we did a pretty good job on offense, but maybe even a better job on defense. Jimmy French, he's got impact as his development trait. He is 6'2", 256 with good speed and strength, but the power moves are only 71. So I think we are going to be redshirting him. Eric Lamb, on the other hand, he has a chance to play early. 6'6", 264, 81 speed, 86 strength, 79 power moves, a rare combination of size, speed, and strength. I'm going to spoil it for you. It's not listed here, but his block shedding, it's not very good. So don't expect him to be making a ton of plays against the run, but he should be pretty good at getting after the quarterback. Kevin Campanaro, impact development, 6'3", 267, good speed and strength, but much like French, the power moves have some improving to do, along with the awareness and play rec. So expect to see French and Campanaro both redshirted, and then maybe next year, one of those 2 will start. The interior defensive line is a position group that could have been a major problem and still might be. We lost both of our starters and lost a lot of depth and don't really have a ton of bodies available to play here. Andre Okoye, only normal development, 6'1", 281. He's got really good finesse moves, pretty good strength despite being undersized, and he will be a starter right away for us as a true freshman. We'll see how he does out there along with Edward Reed, another guy who's going to have to play early. Impact development, 6'3", 317, 74 block shed, but he's got 90 strength, and he's really just a space eater and a block eater. So I think those 2 should pair pretty nicely together in the middle of our defense. The third defensive lineman that we brought in, or I should say interior defensive lineman that we brought in, Emmanuel Blunt, was somebody that I found really late. He's only a 2-star prospect, but he's got impact as his development trait and 86 strength. I like those 2 things. But the block shedding needs some work, the awareness needs some work, and the play rec needs some work, so he has a lot of improving to do. But maybe eventually he could be a good player for us. He will have an extra year to develop because we are going to be redshirting him. And speaking of redshirting players, we are going to be redshirting the majority of the linebackers we bring in. Not because they're terrible. Enrique Roundtree's pretty decent. Impact development. JUCO sophomore. 85 speed. The zone coverage needs a lot of work. But the main reason that we are going to be redshirting the majority of the linebackers we bring in has to do with the type of defense that we play. We play a 4-2-5 defense, meaning we only need 2 linebackers on the field in our base defense. Sure, there is special teams, but we don't really need every single linebacker to be available for special teams. So McCobb, speaking of special teams, this guy is a future special teams player for us. I doubt he's ever going to be a starting linebacker for us in a 4-2-5, but he should be able to play some special teams for us. We did also bring in 3 middle linebackers. Thomas Mintz, he's got impact development, 5'11", 221. Good zone coverage, good speed. Does need to work on his run stopping ability, and that is really the main reason that he's going to be redshirted. Now, the only linebacker that we are bringing in that will not be redshirted is this next one, and that is Taylor Sanzenbacher. Normal development, and that is the main reason he's not going to be redshirted, is that he's already pretty much capped out. You know how player caps or attribute caps are a thing in this game? Well, he's already pretty much reached his cap. So I didn't really see a point in redshirting him. He will be a depth linebacker for us, at least for this first season. Maybe he could still start for us if we don't get really that much out of training in the next offseason. Ethan Dugan, impact development, 6'3", 243, a bigger linebacker. He needs to work on the coverage. He is definitely there, though, to be a run stopper. I did want to bring in at least one really good run stopper, and he should be that down the line. Cornerback was a major problem for us last year. Unfortunately, this class was not a good one for cornerbacks. I scouted a lot of them, and the majority of them were not very good. LaMarcus Pettigrew, we ended up bringing him in, 6'2", 197, normal development. He's got 65 man, 67 zone, and the speed is not good. I think he is more of a role player for us. Ben Edmonds is the lone cornerback I brought in that is going to be really good. He is going to play for us right away. Star development, 5'10", 193, 81 zone. Now the man coverage, not good, but we don't really play a lot of man coverage because it's not very good in college football 25, if I'm being honest. So we'll stick him out there and run mostly zone. We did end up bringing in a couple of safeties. Gabe Newcomb, he's only got normal development as a JUCO junior, has 77 zone, 87 speed. I think we are going to be redshirting him, not because he's terrible, but mostly because I think he would get more playing time down the line than he would this year. And it really has a lot to do with this next player we're going to talk about. That would be Josh Wood. He has elite development. He is 6'2", 213, 94 speed. His zone coverage, not very good, but I think he can make up for that with his elite athleticism and size. So he is going to be starting for us right away, and I have very high expectations for him. We also did bring in a strong safety. We had to bring in at least one, and unfortunately, it was only a 1-star here in George Scales. He's only got normal development. He's only 5'9", 198, not really fast. Not amazing in coverage. The 66 zone is not terrible for a 1-star, at least compared to some of the other ones I did scout. And we kind of just threw a scholarship at him at the end, and he chose us over going nowhere. Elliot Redmond, we had to bring in a punter, and he is the one that we ended up going with. Unfortunately, he's not very good, and he's pretty much already at his caps. 76 kick power is the highest his kick power is going to get. Really disappointing. I was hoping for more from him, so I'm expecting us to have to bring in another punter next year and probably another kicker. Special teams is not looking like it's going to get any better this next season. We ended up finishing with the 37th overall recruiting class. It was the top recruiting class in all the Conference of USA. If you're wondering about the players that transferred away, Javon Turner, he's going to be heading to Rutgers. Zion Chambers, he'll go to Virginia. And then, oddly enough, both of the safeties that decided to leave us, they both have gone to Syracuse. Hayden Warner and Jerome Moon are going to be teaming up, not for us, but for Syracuse. Let's go over the entire roster. Chad Green, to nobody's surprise after training results, is still the highest overall on the team. He was last year, and he will be once again this year. The highest overall quarterback we have, well, it's a tie. It is Forrest Fry and Jared Jones tied for the highest overall quarterback on the team. I think we're going to have those two compete for the starting spot. The loser will be redshirted, and then the backup is going to end up being Josh Porter. But maybe Josh Porter could be the starter, and then we redshirt both of those guys. I guess that's still possible. Jordan Bryant, he got injured in the redo of the first year of this dynasty that I had to do, and unfortunately, the injury was so bad that he was out for most of the year, and he got redshirted. And I can't fix that. I can't change that. So we are going to pretend he was granted a redshirt year for his freshman season where he didn't really play. Now, he might end up transferring away anyway after this next season because pro potential is a deal breaker for him, and we do not really have a good grade for pro potential. So it might not end up mattering to us in the long run. At wide receiver, TJ Carter, he's a top guy now, and he is going to be our number one wide receiver. But What about behind him? It's just a bunch of guys that are rated about the same, so don't be surprised if George Barr ends up playing for us early and being one of our starters, or Nick Shields. We're going to give a chance to all those guys to play and let the cream rise to the top, I guess. Joey Hammer, he'll be competing for that top tight end spot, along with Russell Moore, who got a big boost in the training portion of the offseason. And then we'll have Bobby Woods be the third guy. Now, Brian Ramirez, he had the same thing happen to him that happened to Jordan Bryant. They both got injured, and when the injury was too serious to come back to play in the redo of the first year of the Dynasty, so they both got redshirted and have an extra year. With Ramirez, he doesn't have a deal breaker, so we likely will actually benefit from this, getting an extra year out of him. Jimmy Fisher, he may not be the highest overall right tackle, but I am going to give him a chance to compete in some practices and see if he ends up being good enough to just start right away for us as a true freshman. Somehow we did end up getting Addison Bynum on the team. I thought he committed to Notre Dame, but they didn't have a scholarship offer to him, so he ends up flipping to us, and we have an extra guard. He is going to be redshirted, but it's really nice to get him along with Christian Garrett. And I think the long-term plan is to have those two start at right guard and left guard, and then have Gilreath be the backup. But for now, of course, we do have the two seniors that are going to start for us at right guard and left guard, and Chad Green and James Hoover. James Maldonado, he is likely going to end up getting redshirted if he doesn't have a good showing in practice. The defensive line, it still has DeMarcus Perkins. He didn't get a big jump in overall in offseason training. And then there's Eric Lamb and Milton Hampton, who will be on the other side, taking up a lot of the playing time there. Yes, Shaw did get a pretty good boost, but he's still not that great, in my opinion. Now, Milton Hampton, he has the big edge when it comes to block shedding over Lamb. So if it's an obvious running situation, don't expect Lamb to be out there. It will probably be Hampton. The interior defensive line is going to be a mess, but we'll see if any of the young players who brought in are able to emerge. Now at linebacker, like I talked about, a lot of the guys we brought in are going to be redshirted because we do still have Deshaun Rockwell and also still have Wyatt Van Horn. That isn't even mentioning Jarian Hughes, who got a pretty good boost in offseason training. He is going to see some playing time out there, along with Weeks, and then don't forget about Sanzenbacher. He'll get a bit of playing time as well. The cornerback room, it does look better ratings-wise. We do have some pretty good zone coverage in this group, but it's not very deep, so we can't redshirt anybody. And if somebody goes down due to injury, we may be having to break a redshirt on somebody like Newcomb because he does have the team player mental ability, or Josh Wood. He might have to slide over to corner, and then maybe Newcomb has to play safety for us. Just some things to think about there. Anton McDonald, he'll be starting for us at strong safety. He made a huge leap in the offseason training. He's got 93 zone coverage. Jefferson will be the backup, and then Scales will be redshirted. Steven Spears and Elliott Redmond are not very good. I don't think our special teams are going to be improving very much, if at all. It might even get worse. Hopefully not. Can't get that much worse. So this is the roster here after the offseason, and I'm excited to see what this team can do in year number 2. I don't think we're going to be making a giant leap forward, but I think we at least have some future potential on the team. We actually have some freshmen on the team, unlike last year. Now, we did get hit by another bug in this dynasty. This time it is the custom schedule bug. You can see that we have 6 straight road conference games. I can't change them. We're stuck with that. We're also stuck with our non-conference schedule. I can't change even the home or away for the non-conference games. So it's stuck like that. Hopefully EA puts out a patch for that and a lot of the other things that are impacting Dynasty Mode here in the early going of the game's release. When it comes to preseason recruiting, we're not going to talk much about it. We'll save a lot of that for next episode because the board, it can change in a hurry early in the season. But that is going to be all for this off-season episode. If you guys are excited to see year number 2 of this dynasty, like this video and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. Let me know your thoughts down below on the off-season and your expectations for year number 2 of this dynasty. Thanks for watching this one, and I will see you in the next one.